very much. So hi, everyone. My name is Christiana Manzacco. I'm a Director of Industry Development with Alberta Enterprise Corporation and also a Rainforest Edmonton Steering Committee member up until recently, actually, but I've been on the steering committee for a couple of years now. So I'm stepping off to make way for my colleague, Alan Campbell, who will be joining the committee. But I'm glad to be here today and host Lunch Without Lunch. Rainforest is very important to me. I just wanted to get any other folks who are part of the Rainforest Alberta or Rainforest Edmonton to just raise their hand so we can say hello to you, acknowledge you. I know there's many of you. Good to see you. Okay, great. So without further ado, I will share my screen and I will just quickly walk us through how this works and what the rainforest is all about. Can everyone see my screen? Yep, and it's on the right presentation, yes?
It's just not in presentation view
Okay.
right now, so it's in
I'll
edit
put it in
view.
presentation. Is that better?
Perfect, perfect.
Awesome, okay. Thank you very much. So here we are, Lunch Without Lunch. I'm gonna advance the screen. It's not letting me. Oh, there we go. Okay. Zoom etiquette and good to know. So clearly there's many of us here on the call. So if you could use the raise hand function or ask to speak using the chat, say comment or question, we will get to you, either Bridget or myself. Please, if you could stay muted until it's your turn to speak. Please don't interrupt the presentation or jump into it. This just helps us maintain the flow of it and it makes sure that we can stay on time. And also it allows us to hear the great presentations from the founders we have today. And then the chat and the resources around that will be captured and posted in the lunch notes in the Slack channel. So the rainforest. So clearly there are no rainforests here in Alberta. The rainforest is an analogy for something much bigger. So the idea here is that rainforests are organic, unlike farms, where all the factors are understood and controlled and optimized to achieve certain outcomes. These command and control structures are designed for delivering controlled outcomes and maximizing expected results. But we know that farms don't lend themselves to creating innovation or new ideas. So the rainforest methodology is at its very core about taking risks and exploring new concepts that maybe haven't been tried before or haven't yet been discovered. Farms, on the other hand, are risk averse and risk minimization engines. Rainforests are wild, untamed spaces where new ideas can sprout, and if they're well adapted to their environment, thrive. So what are we trying to do here? The rainforest vision is a world-class community of dreamers and doers connected by a common goal of making Alberta fertile ground for building, developing, and growing innovative ideas into sustainable ventures. Our mission is to connect the innovation ecosystem by strengthening the movement behind the Alberta tech industry around a framework of shared values of collaboration, community, and trust through storytelling. So I'm sure many of you are probably already familiar with the Rainforest Social Contract. It was developed at the first Rainforest Summit. You sign it as an individual. It's essentially just a code of conduct that governs the way that we all work with one another in the innovation ecosystem. It's a way that we can internalize the thoughts and externalize the way that we work together. And also knowing that each person in this community has their own relative strengths and weaknesses and their own value that they can bring to the rainforest and bring to working with others in the community. The 6 pillars of building an innovation ecosystem. So these are the pillars that we survey for. Essentially, we measure ourselves on how we as an ecosystem continue to develop around when it comes to culture, our leaders, the resources available to actually help this ecosystem thrive, engagement activities, the policy and infrastructure that underpins the innovation ecosystem, and then the role models that we have here in the ecosystem. And that's that. So I will stop sharing my screen. Great. Thank you. And now, without further ado, I'll pass it over to Bridget to introduce our two speakers for today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Christiana. I'm also, before introducing the panelists, I would like to make an introduction to a new community member, Rainforest Calgary. And so Amber Rowden has joined the Calgary team as a marketing coordinator to help with the storytelling of our community and founders and gain a little more reach across the city of Calgary. So Amber, do you want to take like 30 seconds to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Amber. As Bridget mentioned, I am part of the Rainforest team in Calgary as the marketing coordinator. I'm really excited to learn more about the tech and innovation industry in Alberta, and I'm really excited to bring my storytelling skills and to learn more about everyone here and to connect. And thank you so much for having me. I look forward to it.
Awesome. We're really excited to have Amber with us. So please feel free to reach out to her and connect and get to know her and give her a warm welcome to the community. So without further ado, we'll get on with the show. We have two founders joining us today. We've tried to reserve the first Wednesday of every month for a founder showcase and storytelling session. So here we are. We have two Robs joining us today. First of all, and I'll introduce you both, Rob, and we'll call Robert Price Robert today, as he said, so we can distinguish between the two. I'll introduce you both, and then we'll maybe start with Rob Townsend's presentation if you want to get ready, Rob. So Rob Townsend represents the future of financial advice. His vision for helping Canadians achieve independent financial wealth has come to fruition with the establishment of Camber, an independent wealth management firm serving high net worth Canadians. Camber creates financial dashboards so people can visualize complex finances all in one place and be empowered to make smarter financial decisions. Rob has 12 years of wealth management experience with two of the dominant global firms. And while he was with those firms, he became frustrated with the old way of doing things and knew there had to be a better way to serve the financial needs of Canadians. So here we are. Rob is the CEO of Camber. He's a chartered investment manager, and he's graduated with a Bachelor of Commerce from the U of S. Are you from Saskatchewan, Rob?
I am Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
Nice. I'm from Swift Current, Speedy Creek. And he also has a Master's of Public Policy from the U of C. And also joining us, no stranger if you were listening to the podcast last week, is Robert Price. He is one of the founders and the CEO of Bode, an online real estate marketplace that launched in Alberta in 2019. He's brought together an all-star team that is turning the traditional real estate industry upside down by directly connecting buyers and sellers to work out a deal on their own time, their own schedule, and their own terms. No realtor required. Just hope there's no realtors in the room. Just as we've seen with Airbnb and Auto Trader, consumers are smart, ready, and confident to make these transactions themselves. Previously, Robert was a senior executive at a telecom leader, Axia, which brought high-performing, low-cost fiber infrastructure to customers in Alberta, the US, France, and Singapore. Robert thrives in leading high-performing teams that deliver amazing customer experience and meet critical revenue objectives. He has grown up in an entrepreneurial family and is a passionate advocate for Alberta and its entrepreneurs. So it's a pleasure to have you both joining us today to share your stories. We'll start with Rob Townsend. If you're good to go on screen sharing, if you need to screen share, Rob, and we can't wait to hear from you.
You bet. Well, thank you so much for that kind introduction. I'll just try and get this set up.
You want to
working for
swap the
everybody?
displays, so we're seeing the like note one. So yeah, go display settings and then swap displays, and then yes, perfect.
There we go. All right, so kind of as explained, I have a wealth management background and just felt like there could be a better way. A lot of that comes down to the focus that Canadians put on finance. We feel is kind of all the media, all the attention from traditional financial advisors is really kind of put on the wrong place. Those are areas where they're non-control variables. So we wanted to find a way to modernize financial planning, which is really the control variable part of your overall financial life. So what does that mean? We're really trying to use technology just to visualize the impact of decisions. And we think that data is greater than opinions. So we're trying to build big data models to give very sophisticated advice, but then deliver it in a way that makes sense to someone, whether they have a background in finance or whether they do not. This is a bigger task than you might think. When you look at people's finances, they're quite disorganized. So in order to make a good data model, you obviously need good data. And that data in finance comes from all these disparate sources, right? Your real estate is in one place, your insurance is in another. You might have multiple investment accounts. What's your contributions on your TFSAs, RSPs? That's in the CRA database. Like, how do you get all this stuff and ensure data accuracy? And then how do you organize it, analyze it, and then display it back to the individual in a way where they can make sense of what they're trying to achieve in their life, in their financial life. So really what that looks like is we kind of need their data. Then we need an assumption engine for that data to try and look at the accuracy. We get a lot of misinformation, so we need to kind of test the information we get from the client. We need to make other assumptions, which we do. Then we need economic assumptions, growth rates for stocks, bonds, inflation, all that sort of stuff, and then obviously tax. So to integrate all this together, I guess, is the mission of Cameron, and display it in a way that makes sense to the individual. And for my presentation, I thought I would just tell you our biggest blooper, which we came out of the gate in March of 2019. We talked to a Calgary development company and we just said, you know, here's our idea. We have deep domain expertise in personal finance, but we know nothing about code or development. So we would like to build this. And they kind of said, wow, we love this idea. We're super passionate about it. Let's get started. And we ended up spending 125 grand. And we basically got, 6 questions of a survey that don't even work going into a big database. So it was just a complete disaster. And we bear a lot of the burden for that, for maybe not having a total delineated path of what we wanted, but we were also, I feel like, kind of misdirected in what we were told was able to be built and the cost that would be associated for that. So we had then basically we're a bootstrapped company, and so we had kind of blown our entire chunk to create the future of financial planning. And so we had to do what our original mission with basically no resources. And this is where we're at today. And I just think it's been really interesting. Without being able to have a full all-in-one solution, we basically had to go to a no-code option where we used readily available software to build out this process. So we needed to gather data. So we use Typeform for that. Then we need to talk to the client. We use Calendly for that. Then we need to integrate and automate the workflow process so that all the data gets kind of organized and put into one place. Financial planning, that's our kind of domain, so our domain expertise. It goes into that software, and then we output it and visualize it to our clients using Power BI. That total software suite, excluding the financial planning software, which again is just specific to our domain, is $2,100 a year. So we haven't totally solved product market fit, to be totally honest. This is complicated to get people away from prediction and talking about stocks and bonds, and instead talking about the things that really matter and where we can affect change. So we're playing with this, but these, third-party softwares that are basically free really have allowed us to gather a lot of information, test different ideas, and run through a process of understanding what our product is. And from that point, I think we'll be in a much better place to go, and get this built in an all-in-one, totally custom solution down the line. So I guess I'm a proponent of, there is a way to build these products 80% or 90% of the way with third-party off-the-shelf software and integrations. And these pieces of software are getting better and better every day. So with that, I will end my presentation on screwing up building software and having to do it with a no-code solution.
Oh, I'll just unmute. Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Does anybody have any questions for Rob before we move forward? You could either raise your hand or throw it in the chat. We have a comment from Mark that investment in software is a path littered with so-called software developers making promises that cost the client a lot of money and ultimately do not deliver. So yeah, another great resource for no code options. Any questions there before we move forward? And you can still keep, oh, Peter has a question. Sure, go ahead, Peter.
Brilliant approach to getting things done. And I would think this needs to get right into school, preschool. Well, I don't know if preschool, but close to it, but early ages so that people understand the implications of their economic decisions, but from the beginning, because a lot of people wait till they're already over the edge and then they start seeking financial advice. So I think this is a brilliant idea.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, really our approach is to try and, tackle this problem, which is financial literacy in Canada. And the tools are there. It's really just a behavioral problem. It used to be solved really my thesis was mostly on the pension system, and pensions really solved a lot of these problems because it made you save, it invested it appropriately with a professional manager for free or for very low management fees, and then it withdrew the money to you in a tax effective way. Now they took those away, everyone has to figure this stuff out their own, and of course there's these massive errors because people are trying to live their lives and can't make prudent financial decisions. So I think all the tools are there that we need. We just need to bring it to people and shine the light on the areas of their life that they really should be thinking about, and away from the things that can be harmful.
Yeah, it's kind of like, people know they should be healthy, but whether they do those healthy things early enough in life to save the problems down the road, same thing, right?
Exactly. We often say we're trying to be the Fitbit of finance. The recipe of financial health is pretty simple. It's just staying consistent on those little behaviors and letting them compound over time, and trying to use technology and the inspiration from those types of companies to bring that to our clients at Camber and to all Canadians, really.
Great. Christiana, do you want to start with your comment? But we do have a lot of questions in there too.
Sure. Sorry. I mean, other people can go first. I don't have to go first.
Sure. Yeah, a few questions that we can probably answer directly in the chat. One is, how does your platform integrate or compete with online tools like Wealthsimple? I had the same thought.
Yeah, so we love Wealthsimple. We just say to people, what happens when your wealth isn't simple? And so what we see, again, kind of like, I don't need to pay $200 a month to go to a CrossFit gym, but I need to pay someone to yell at me. The tools are pretty simple, but action is important. So we're your partner in action. Also, if you don't have financial literacy, it can be quite confusing to start an account, figure out your asset allocation and stick to that plan. And then if you have more complex financial problems, like how do you create a withdrawal strategy in retirement, or I want to set up a family trust, or do I need a spousal loan, or my wife died, she's got a pension, how does that commute over, and then who pays the tax and when? This, you put that into Wealthsimple and your phone would explode. So at some point you do need kind of personal financial advice. The software isn't there, in my opinion, yet to totally scale that advice. We want to be a part of helping it get there. At this point, we still think personal finance is very personal and requires quite a bit of human coaching and behavioral analysis and help. Totally. But we love what Wealthsimple is doing.
Colette has a question. Are customers of Camber able to modify the assumptions used for projections?
Absolutely.
Quick, easy answer. All right, Christiana, and you go ahead with your comment, and if I missed any questions there that you might have picked up on.
Yeah, great. I was just wondering, how does your solution compare to something like Personal Capital, which I know is really popular in the States?
Yeah, another great solution, and has been able to integrate all this stuff. It's not available in Canada, so they would be, something that we're trying to create. But I would still say much more of a human touch at this point. I always talk about, paying off your mortgage at this point in time at 2% mortgage rates. It doesn't make a lot of sense mathematically to pay down your mortgage and not have that money in the stock market, which has a higher rate of return, and you can collect that ARB. But that's a very personal decision. Most people want to pay off their house as soon as possible just so they have that part de-risked in their life. So the math isn't always the whole picture, and sometimes people need to be guided through those conversations. And we believe that's where we can kind of make a difference of harnessing the best of what personal capital is doing and what we're trying to bring, with that human component still being a part of the overall service.
Awesome, thank you. I can ask a couple of the other questions here. So from Singham, the question is, how secure is your platform in terms of ensuring data privacy, especially with the increase of cyber threats?
Yeah, well, it's something we think a lot about. And you know, a lot of these third-party solutions, again, they're huge companies. You're almost increasing your data security by partnering with them instead of trying to do it all on your own with your own data security policies. We do kind of entrust that anything that's, you know, hyper sensitive is all under our custodian, which is the National Bank of Canada. So it's got bank level encryption and security. And then anything we're taking through these third parties is personal financial data, which we take very seriously of not getting out, but it's nothing that, if found, could be used to, say, take money out of your accounts or do anything of that nature.
Okay. Next question from Song. What is the business model? Is it a for-fee service, or is it something like a percentage of your portfolio?
Yeah, in Canada, again, it's kind of a regulated industry, so your pricing models are a bit limited, but we are a percentage of asset under management revenue model.
Okay.
And maybe we'll move over to Robert, and then we can address any other questions. And Rob, if there's any in the chat that you can address through the chat, that would be awesome too.
Okay, I'll take a look at that. Will do.
Sound good? Great,
so much.
thanks. Thank you so much. We'll move over to Robert Price. I promised networking time today, so I don't mean to be pushing everyone along, but we'll hope to fit that in.
Can you see that, Bridget?
We can, yeah, perfect.
Great. Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me be part of this. Exciting, love this community and love being part of it. Before I jump into boat, I'll just comment on the fact that I've been a Camber customer for many years and they kick ass. Rob, everything Rob just said is true. Very sharp guy, very sharp team, and their technology is amazing. I know we kind of look behind the scenes there under the hood of the car, but the actual experience is fantastic. So really exciting that his business is taking off. So I won't spend, Bridget did a better job actually than I could of pitching boats. I won't try to belabor what we do. I want to spend most of my time here focusing on how to build a high performing team that's focused on a particular opportunity. So what do? We are the first two-sided real estate marketplace. We launched in Alberta September 2019, and essentially what we offer is a modern, immersive online experience that connects buyers and sellers directly through the messages, viewings, offers, negotiations, all the way to possession, creating that awesome efficiency of the two decision makers in the deal. We also provide sold data and other advanced data tools so that you can determine the value of the property you're buying or selling, depending on which side of the deal you're on. We have some first-in-kind augmented reality signage, which is pretty cool. But fundamentally, we are creating the optionality for both the buyer and the seller to use an agent if they like. 90% of transactions in Canada today have both a buy and sell agent involved. So you end up with not just one middleman, two middlemen in the vast majority of transactions. And that's been very static and very limited and very expensive over time as home values have increased and commission values have stayed the same over the last 30 years for Canadians. So we're not coming to Bridget's point of how well are we actually connected with agents. We have many agent accounts. They're part of our ecosystem. We've just created more optionality and choice ultimately for our customers, which is so far going very well. We're now a top 10% brokerage in Alberta. We just completed our 100th transaction and we're planning to aggressively expand across Canada this year and ultimately internationally. So it's been a lot of fun, a lot of challenges ahead, but certainly off to a good start. So just talking about how do you build a team, and I took quite a unique approach because I saw that this opportunity was and is so significant. The window is so perfect to bring this kind of service to the market. I started with a full executive team and a full board right from incorporation. And so that gives us the advantage of totally focusing on execution as opposed to having to think about all the intricacies of adding people and equity and incentives and hiring and all of the distraction, which is highly time consuming at the same time you're building a business. So what we did is started with this executive team, and we had four, so myself, Lindsay, Alan, Jordan, all come with no real estate experience. We come from tech, from telecom, from land, but we have nobody in the real estate transaction experience realm. And Jeff actually does that for us. So he's our local expert. And if you think of any significant innovation or transformation in industry has come from fresh perspective. Taxi cabs didn't invent Uber, CNN didn't invent Facebook. We come to the industry without the baggage and with the total focus of what would a customer want today, not looking back for the last 30 years, today, and looking ahead for the next 5. So the convergence of Jeff's experience and that fresh perspective really creates a unique combination. As I mentioned, we also started with a full board. Art has been successful in a number of industries, as well as Murray as a leader of a number of companies as their CEO. And then Chris is a brilliant mind in terms of creating a cult type following in terms of building an organization that truly has that brand tribe feel to it, that doesn't rely on heavy advertising and instead on purpose and passion and impact. And then many of you, I'm sure, know Hanif. I'm an investor and strategic advisor, was actually from the start of Cement, and he insisted on repaying the favor to us. So happy to have him on board, as well as Phil Roberts, who is a former colleague and a very smart guy. So to kind of think through those points, these are my leadership philosophy as it relates to people. Number one is surround yourself with as many brilliant people as you can. I think a lot of people are worried about or think that it's a sign of weakness if they're not kind of taking it on themselves and keeping it as tight as possible. So I take the opposite of that. I think we all know it's very difficult. Nobody wins alone. So you want to actually spread that insight and that collaboration as far as you can with people that bring differentiated skill sets to the table. And connected to that point, be inclusive of ownership. I see a lot of founders that start with the idea that they're going to own 100% of the company, no matter what. And that, I think, is actually not a great view. It's better to have more of the team involved in the ownership, and that creates a catalyst on top of a purpose-driven organization in order to succeed. Number 3, reduce your early phase risk by having people that you've worked with in the past, or that you trust, but to the extent that you have worked together, as many of us have on our team, you start right from day one, right from incorporation, making progress because you know each other's nuances, you know each other's quirks and styles. So that just gives you that capability to just move forward. For us, we launched in 6 months from the moment we, became a real company. So that's credit to us just having that familiarity and really pushing forward in that respect. And then think of the board as an extension of your team. I think for me anyways, the value of the right directors in early phase business is huge, especially given typically it's not a cash-based compensation. And these guys have been, in our case, have been through starting a number of companies themselves. They've been highly successful. And I want a balanced organization where I don't have, if I'm the CEO, I don't have unlimited control over everything. I want accountability to make my performance better as well. So that combination, I think a lot of people, a lot of early founders see the board as very corporate or has a stigma of too corporate and too much bureaucracy, or however you want to think of it. I see it as the opposite. I see it as an accelerator because you have that experience at your disposal, and those questions are there to be answered and collaborated on. And then ultimately, going with each of those points allows that focus, allows you to take on the challenge with that focus, as I mentioned, and ultimately have fun competing in the market and not kind of distracted by the operational and other complexities that many new startups have over their first 6 to 12 months as they're trying to do all those things all at the same time. So I could go on for hours about all the challenges that it takes to start a business. I thought I'd focus on team today because at the end of the day, that is the most important factor of success, in my opinion, and happy to entertain questions.
That's awesome. Thanks, Robert. And thanks for that focus on the team side of things. I noticed Lindsay's in the chat, excuse me, Lindsay's in the chat answering some questions around the business model. I don't know if perhaps she wants to unmute and address some of those with more context, or if you've seen those, Robert, and want to do so.
I was just answering some of the questions as they came in, but Rob's well poised to answer any of these questions as well.
I don't know if he's seen them all. You might want to maybe offer some answers to some of those questions to the whole audience, Lindsay, if you don't mind.
Sure, Rob,
Sorry
do you
to
want
put
to
you on
go
the spot?
Sure, absolutely. Rob, do you want to go into the business model, the revenue model, and how it works if you're a buyer and there is an agent on the seller side, and how much savings potentially that Bode has to offer?
Yeah, so right now, to list with us, it's a simple online process. Takes about 10 to 15 minutes to go through, put all your specs in. We'll take it live. We'll market your property, as I mentioned, and we'll also cover photos and measurements in 3D to make sure you have that full online visibility. That's become even more important given the pandemic, with more and more people buying houses remotely or limiting their visits as much as possible. And then upon sale, 1% of that transaction value versus the typical 4 to 5% in Canada, so 70% savings. That's our revenue model. If you don't sell for whatever reason, there's no cost to you. So that makes our incentives fully aligned with yours in terms of when you're successful, then we're successful. If you're not, then we end up with the investment that we made to make that successful, eating that cost to make us accountable. And maybe just to touch on the buy side. So that's the sell side. On the buy side, as we actually recently announced, anywhere in Alberta now, as a buyer, you can purchase any property that's on realtor.ca because we have all of those listings in our marketplace because we are technically a brokerage. So over 16,000 properties you can buy yourself, which immediately cuts out half of the commission of the deal. So typically, again, 3 to 4%, you're cutting out 2% on $1 million purchase. You're standing to save $20,000 just by using our tools and ultimately the support of our team to do that. Nobody's done that anywhere that we've seen globally. And so we're very excited about supporting both sides of the marketplace, but that's been exciting. We're seeing our buyer growth really accelerate in the last months with more understanding of that functionality.
There's another question in here, Rob, that's asking about risk mitigation. Realtors often communicate their value through risk mitigation, local knowledge, market insights, transaction support. How does Bode make sure that our clients get the same access to risk mitigation as someone with a realtor?
Yeah, there's been a lot of conversation, or the position of agents has historically been, this is a huge deal, so don't make the mistake of going on your own and screwing it up. And we just couldn't think more opposite than that. We say, yeah, it is a huge deal. So you should have the information, the data, the tools, everything that currently an agent has behind the scenes given to you so that you can have all of that information at your disposal and drive and control the process. So one example of that is unearthing sold data. We now have sold data for every property that's transacted in the last 10 years in Alberta, so that you can be smart, whether you're on the buy side or sell side, and understanding actual values. Because we're not talking about the whole market here. We're talking about 60 to 70% of Canadians that own properties. And typically we're talking about very educated people. We're talking about people obviously with credit. People are smart. So we believe they're smart. We believe they can do it themselves. And of course, with the support of our team for any nuances or any support that they need throughout.
I can ask questions all day, but
Yeah.
Bridget,
I'm just sitting back and relaxing there, Lindsay. Thanks. And listening for a change more attentively. This question intrigues me. There's several in there that I'm sure you can both answer in the chat, but how did you find your first customer?
Our first customer was a builder, actually, of 4 spec beautiful townhomes in downtown Calgary, or the Beltline of Calgary, I should say. And we did a very incremental release strategy. So we had alpha, beta, and then launch in September. So in alpha, we're going to friends and family, of course. We're talking to our network and building up that excitement to be the first listing. And Namdang Mitchell was our very first. In fact, we did a launch party with her, invited media, had a big event, showed our tech as part of that event. And so she sold her first 4 places in under a month, which is really exciting. A really good early proof point that this is working. And so we're off to the races after that.
Awesome. Christiana, I don't know if you've been maybe monitoring better. Maybe I was taking too much of a break here. Are there any other questions that we should throw out at them? I do see this, like the most latest from Vikram. Sorry to jump ahead of those who have already put their questions in, but he says, which part of the marketplace did you all focus on first, buy side or sell side, and how did you get more traction?
Yeah, the first focus was the sell side, because we had to make sure that experience was really slick in terms of getting your property listed, and build up our whole approach to making sure that your property is going to sell faster and better than the traditional way, and saving money at the same time. So we started with that, and now we've shifted our efforts over the last 2 to 3 months more comprehensively to the buy side, now that the sell side is really rock solid, so that we create basically that 2-sided marketplace we're talking about. It does take both sides to continue to build, and we'll continue to do that, because you end up you need the critical mass on both sides to have that long-term marketplace. In the meantime, we don't actually need a significant number of buyers, because our sellers are populated in a whole bunch of different domains. They're on Zillow, they're on realtor.ca, they're on 30 other websites, and we digitally market. So we're getting 300% more action on our listings than the traditional market does, just with our combination of digital marketing strategies.
Great. Well, there's so many questions in the chat, so I'm just going to pick away at a couple of these. So it says, curious to understand how you've taken lessons learned from other similar startups that are trying to deliver the same value, cost savings to your customers.
In terms of competition?
Yeah, I guess competition, but maybe just other startups in general who have a value proposition that's focused on cost savings. Are there any key lessons you've learned from them?
Yeah, I think there. So we we set out with the philosophy of we want to make sure that our experience is better. Sorry, could you just, some vacuuming going on here. We set out to make sure that our online experience would be chosen by our customers irrespective of cost. So build this whole experience on both sides of the market that is modern and is so much improved, and have that watermark of that performance that even if it was the same amount of money, people would buy it and people would still use it. So that is our goal. We're continuing to build towards that goal. Just so happens we're way less money, and that is just benefit to you. So it comes back, and Lindsay could actually add on to this, but what kind of brand feel do you want in our space? Anybody that's tried to do some version of selling with a hybrid agent, with a call center, with some kind of a incrementally different model, they've been very much low cost, just focus on the actual numbers. And I think that's less persuasive than total focus on the customer value and what they experience throughout, and then making sure that the numbers are competitive, in our case, are still substantially less. So it's winning on both fronts.
Sounds good. Okay, so maybe time for one more question.
Love it.
So this one has two different questions built in. So I think the one has already been addressed mostly, but you can touch on it. So it says, how do you do inspections, walkthroughs, title searches? How do all those things get arranged? And then the other question is, what is your exit? So I interpret that as, what is your strategy for exit or path to exit?
Yeah, so the first question, we have what's called the Pro Marketplace, still in beta mode. It's live. We have a number of pros in there. We're adding pros every day. So inspectors, appraisers, those professional services are there with pricing and with their brands and by location, offering their services to make that really easy and direct. So that's how we deal with that. In terms of a title pull, that specific part of it, we'll pull that ourselves. And we do have, as I mentioned, this leadership team behind the scenes supporting you on any individual question that you have all the way through. And then in terms of exit, I think, at least the way that I think, if you focus, it's good to know that you have exit avenues, but that's not actually what builds a successful organization and a successful culture. We're all in it for the long term in terms of really making an impact on the industry. And for many, many years, whatever it takes to do that, we're all excited. As long as we're excited about it and making progress, we will continue down that path. We know this kind of company has the potential to go public long term. So we've organized it in a way that it can do that in terms of our governance, our board, and everything that we've done. But that's, we got a lot of work to do before that point, and that's not necessarily the goal, but we are here to build long-term value, not think of, great, we made some progress and now we can flip the company and move on to something else. That's at least not the way I think, and not the way our leadership team thinks.
Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you to the two Robs, and for sharing your stories and touching on so many different aspects of it. We really appreciate it. I'm sure you can keep answering questions in the chat there. We did promise networking time, and I'm going to come through for once. So I'm going to send people off to the breakout rooms. We'll probably only have time for one breakout room, and then we'll come back to the main room for any announcements and wrap up. And as usual, keep the room open for anyone who wants to stay on. So Robert and Rob, hoping you can stay on in the rooms and chat with people. If you can't, we completely understand. But I will do that now, and we'll see you all back just a few minutes before, probably about 5 to 1. Breakout room, and we can certainly try the feature in future weeks where you can choose your own breakout room on Zoom to be similar to Remo or something for those who have used that platform. But still in Remo, it's awkward to just leave a table in the middle of a conversation. Yeah. Okay, thanks everybody for coming back. We'll just take this last couple of minutes. We still have over 50 people left on the call. So if there's anything in particular that you are looking for help with, or would like to announce to the group, any events or activities coming up here, please feel free to raise your hand or throw them in the chat. Not all at once. Oh, someone raise your hand. Jade, sorry, I'm blind. Thank you.
What? You're blind? Oh. Hey, everybody. I just want to tell you about the Alberta Clean Tech Summit. It's tomorrow, is the first 10 companies that are pitching for about 150 grand. So I put the link in the chat. Come check it out. It's going to be a good night. And the following Thursday, the next 10 pitch as well. But I'll give that a reminder next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Jade. Al, do you want to do a shout out for the podcast?
Yeah, please. We're still looking for hosts for the Rainforest podcast, Leaders, Innovators, and Big Ideas. We have had a couple great episodes lately at the beginning of this year. Episode 103 launched on Tuesday. And I'd really love it if you could join the podcast and subscribe and listen and be a host or a guest. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks, Al. And we have, is it V?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know Next 30 is having a session tomorrow on energy and climate. And it's a similar group to this, but they're looking more at Alberta. And they're talking about different topics on a regular basis and having panels. And Next 30, so next30.ca. Check it out.
Awesome. Thank you. And then we have Trevor.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to mention I've recently launched a new pilot program that helps entrepreneurs and innovators move into the patent process and understand it better and work towards, a patent that would bring more value to their business. And so I'm just looking for a few more entrepreneurs and innovators who want to join the pilot. So maybe I'll put my LinkedIn profile in the chat here. And if anyone wants to connect with me or if they have patent questions or anything like that, I'd love to chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Trevor. And then Jen, and then we'll wrap it up.
Hi, just a couple of quick things. So Al shared about the podcast. We chatted on Sunday and it was a really fun conversation. So thanks for having me, Al. Evolve U Cohort 6 is starting March 15th. So if you know anyone that's interested in applying, we are going through the process of admissions right now. Two more things, actually. We're doing a lot of learner highlights on all of our social media platforms, and these are highlighting the current people in our cohort, and they're really awesome. So I would encourage you, if you have time, to go to our LinkedIn page, Evolve U LinkedIn page, and check out some of these amazing people that will be finishing the program soon and looking for work. And then the final thing is our Cohort 5 demo day. So Blair actually put the Eventbrite link in the chat. It's free to attend. It's on February 25th from 9 to 12. It's a private invite. So, if you're interested, the link is there. And then if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Thanks, Bridget.
Awesome. Sorry, I just sent that, Christiane. I sent your private message. I meant to send to the whole group. The notes will be captured in the Slack. Christiane, did you have an announcement?
Yes, so quickly. So Alberta Enterprise has just released their deal flow study, which is a really important study we only run every 2 or 3 years. And it's for startups to quickly take. It takes 10 minutes. And we directly develop policy and we choose where to put investment dollars based on the number of startups that we have and what their needs are and what stage they're at. So we need to hear from you to hear that you're here, and that way we can get you access to capital. So please do complete the study if you're a startup. Thank you.
Awesome. So much happening. Okay, we will wrap it up. It's the top of the hour. I will leave the room open. A quick shout out for what's happening next week. We have some career pivoters, people from Athenian and from NEO, who are going to be sharing their story about moving from one industry your sector into the tech sector and what that has looked like for them, and any advice they can give to any other newcomers wanting to make that pivot. So if you know of anyone in your extended networks outside of this bubble, please let them know. They can come and learn more about that next week. And we're going to learn all about product management the following week with Product Calgary, Martin LaRue and guest talking about what it's like to be a product manager and why startups need them. So that's coming in the next couple of weeks if you know anyone interested in learning more about roles in the tech industry. So on that note, I'll leave the room open if you want to chat with people, and have a wonderful week. Thank you, Rob and Robert. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I think,
Yes,
oh,
thank you
Rob's
so
still
much.
there. Thanks, Rob.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.